Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray and I teach watercolor here at Let's Make Art, and today we are doing Cheetah. Somebody said that this actually was a leopard. I'm so sorry I led you astray. I don't know.
It's rainbow.
It's rainbow though, that's the more important thing. And we will be doing this project in 7 steps. Our very first step is we will be doing a rainbow wash across our cheetah. I'm just gonna keep saying cheetah.
Me too.
If you know it's a different animal, I just am gonna apologize now.
I'm gonna call it a flamingo,
Perfect.
actually.
Okay, great.
With spots.
Our second step is we are gonna start putting the form into our cheetah, which means shadows, like our medium and dark values. Okay, so second step is shadows. Our third step is we'll do our eyes, nose, mouth, ears. Our fourth step we'll put in our spots. Our fifth step we'll start adding like some fur textures and details to our spots. Our sixth step is put in our whiskers, and then very last step, just any last details. It's always good to just kind of take a step back, see what else this painting needs. We are using 4 colors for this project. Our very first color is lemon yellow. Our second color is fuchsia. Our third color is Tahoe blue, and our very last color is Payne's gray. We're using Dandelion Paint Co. Liquid watercolors. That's our in-house paint brand. We are using Let's Make Art watercolor paper. Please make sure you paint on the more textured side. I am using Holbein soft tape to tape down my paper. It's my favorite tape. And we have an outline. So we're gonna do outline, oath, painting, and we have Keenan here.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, take your outline, tape it to your paper, line it up so where it goes off of goes towards the corner. Like if you were to do this in the middle of your paper, then you would have like this big chunk. You know what I mean? Like line the corners up.
Okay.
Then you're gonna take your graphite paper, do dark shiny side down, and every mark that you make, it will transfer onto your paper. Couple things about graphite paper. It gets better with age. So I know that if you guys have purchased multiple boxes, you have multiple pieces, try and make sure that you use the same piece, because it just gets easier to use the more you use it. Somebody had a really great suggestion. They said if you're having trouble with how dark, not only dark your graphite paper is, but also if you just keep getting smudges just from resting your hand, they said put an extra piece of paper down like here in between.
Oh.
So not on your painting paper here, because then your graphite paper is just not as sensitive, because and like your marks.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it'll still go through to your watercolor paper?
Yeah,
Wow.
maybe just a printer paper if
Yeah.
the watercolor paper is too thick, but I thought that that was a great suggestion in case you're struggling with how dark it is. You can also use a light box instead of a graphite sheet. You can try and draw this yourself. I mean, there's many different ways that you can transfer images. So if graphite paper is not your cup of tea, you don't gotta use it, that's okay.
You could use a window.
Yep, window, even a computer screen.
Suggested to use the window, no computer screen.
No computer screen?
Don't use the computer screen, please.
Oh, you're probably right. It's probably not good to draw on your screen.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sound so aggressive when I said no, don't use a computer screen.
That was aggressive. I'm scared right now.
I was going to suggest not to use a window at night.
Oh, yep. That wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I think in one of Nicole's lettering tutorials, like if you don't have a light box, she showed that you can use like a baking sheet and a flashlight and just make your own, like a clear glass
Yes,
baking sheet.
you can.
Just make your own light box.
I suggested using a headlamp inside said
Okay, that would
baking
work too.
pan. Yes, works really great.
And this outline is going to take a long time because there are so many spots. But that's okay. It also would have been really helpful, and I wish that I would have done this from the beginning, if I used a marker to trace because then I could see what parts I did trace. Didn't do that, so we just gotta eyeball it. One other thing I was gonna say, oh, on this outline, you'll see some dashes. These areas are dashed. It's up to you if you want to trace those or not. The dashes signify a value change as opposed to like a completely different color or like the shape of something. So I used to do like hard lines for value changes as well, and I think it kind of became confusing between the shape of what we were painting and the form. So I moved it to dashes, and so hopefully it's just like a reminder, like, hey, make sure this area is a lighter value, make sure this area is a lighter value. Like, you can try and match them up on your reference photo. Now they do both mean like lighter and darker. I couldn't figure out a way to signify like what would be a highlight and what would be a shadow. I use the dashed shape for both.
It's definitely helpful though to think about that and look at the reference photo.
Absolutely. Just take a look at the reference photo.
Yeah.
And you'll be okay. And it's good practice to like kind of look at something and match it to what it is that you're painting. Actually, it was funny, one time a couple years ago, I was playing like games with some of my friends. And you know those games that are on TV that's like an app? And it asks you questions and you play on your phone and you can, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we were playing something like that. And one of the challenge was they like had a pattern within a box and you were only allowed to look at it for X amount of time, and then you had to recreate it in X amount of time. And so that was my challenge and I got it. And they're like, whoa, how did you do that so fast? And I'm like, it's literally my job to look at something and memorize it and like recreate it. And it was funny because I never thought about it in those terms, but it does take time to look at something and then look at something else. It's like those pictures that are like, which ones are different? You know what I mean? Or, okay. My lines got a little bit lighter as I
Sped up.
But I think I got everything. I'm just going to darken some of them to make it easier for you guys to see. And then once you untape, it's done. Like your outline, you're good. You're good on your outline. So if you miss a spot, just eyeball it after you untape it, because it's like impossible to line it back up again. Okay, I think that's good. I'm just gonna do one little boop, boop. All right. Boop. And boop. Okay, now I'm done.
Okay.
Oath time. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you, Keenan.
Welcome.
I'm gonna raise this up a little bit. Does that look okay?
Looks great.
Okay. Put that there. Now, our very first step is putting in our rainbow wash on our animals. And I love showing you guys this technique because really when it comes to the three-dimensional form of anything, of an animal, of a landscape, of a person, the colors actually aren't as important. If you can get the values down, the viewer will be able to read three-dimensionality, they will be able to read form, and they'll be able to tell what it is. So it's fun to play with that then and do, like, we've done a galaxy wolf before, you know what I mean? And it still reads it's not just like a silhouette filled in, because that's just one value. We're still putting in different values, a value range, because that is how you make something actually look like it's tangible, like you can touch it, form. That's the difference between a shape and a sphere. The shapes are the same, they're both circles, but circles are two-dimensional, flat. Spheres are three-dimensional, but the only difference is they have a value range on them. That's it. That's all there is. So I'm going to start with it's going to start yellow on the nose and then work its way out all the way down to a green. I'm going to start with 3 colors here, and I mostly use the Payne's Gray for the dots, so I don't have that on my palette yet. And I used a round 2 and a round 6 for this project, but I want to show you how using a round 12 can be an easy way to paint quickly, because we're just doing a rainbow wash, essentially. Okay? So, I'm going to grab yellow. Got my brush wet, hit it off the side of the cup. See if I can put this in frame a little bit. Grab some yellow. We're going to start on the nose. Boop, boop, avoiding the actual nose itself and the eyes. And I'm just going to paint over the dots because they're going to be an almost black value anyway. So, yeah, you don't have to paint around them. Okay, and then I'm going to mix orange. So I got some yellow and some fuchsia. And around the top of the head is where I'm going to start putting in orange. And then the side of the nose and the bottom of the nose has a little bit of a darker value. You can see the dashes on our outline here. This is a highlight, this is a shadow. So I'm just going to start dropping in a little bit just so that blends out nicely. We'll go back in and kind of define these a little bit more, but I just want to show, start putting in that there's a little bit of dimensionality to this. Okay, so underneath the eye, we're going with the light yellow here. Now I'm going to mix some more orange. Start putting orange on the side of the face. And again, if your color transitions aren't perfect, that's okay. Okay, and then at this point, I'm going to start adding more fuchsia into my mixture here. And go crazy with color. Just let yourself drop color in, be a little bit, live on the edge, as we like to say here. Mm-hmm. Let's just see what happens. You can be strong with the color.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay. And then the mouth, right where it meets the nose, I'm going to grab orange and yellow. Right there. And then as it goes out, I'm going to use water to blend it out. This is one of those where I want it to stay a little bit lighter because that area is kind of white sometimes. So I'm just going to do a light value as it goes out, but where it meets right here, that's where we can drop in some color. And it's okay if you get different bleeds, different textures. Okay. All right, now we're going to use straight fuchsia on the back here. So once we hit the neck, we're going fuchsia. And then actually right underneath here, let's drop some and then. Also, you don't have to do these exact colors that I'm doing. This is your painting. If you don't like these, if you don't like rainbow, you can do natural colors. I mean, basically just do tans instead of this rainbow. You'll be good. Okay, grab some fuchsia, mix it with blue, but we want it to read more like pink purple. Where's my fuchsia? So start dropping that purple in, and I want to work quickly while it's wet because then these colors will transition a little bit nicer. Smooth out. But yeah, I'm just dropping color in. I mean, I'm throwing caution to the, we are just having fun here, okay? It's not a big deal.
With our cheetah.
Yes.
I mean, flamingo.
Flamingo. Okay, and now I'm gonna add a little bit more blue into my purple mixture so it's still purple. And I'm not going all the way to the edge here. You see how I stopped? That's because this part is white on the actual cheetah, so we're going to do a light value there. Okay, now I'm gonna grab blue. Start putting in blue. And then I'm gonna do like a cool turquoise color. Oh, look at that color.
That is a good color.
Isn't that good? And then right at the bottom here, I'm gonna do green.
Looking at just the faces of a leopard and a cheetah, they're very similar.
They are pretty similar. I think that's what I got caught up on. Okay, now I put in my color transition, but now I'm gonna start kind of finessing it. Blending some areas out. I want the transitions to feel a little bit more natural in some areas. That feels better to me. I'm actually going to introduce this purple a little bit earlier. And just be careful when you're going from one section to the other that you rinse your brush off really well in between because it's easy to get mud. So I'm going to go into this green. And if you notice, I'm kind of doing wisps at the end here because I want to, even when you put in color, even if you're just putting down a wash, it's a good idea, like if you can help give the viewer with your brush stroke and direction of brush stroke an idea of texture and form, I mean, that only helps. It's not a deal breaker, but if you can do it, might as well, you know? Okay. Okay. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Cheetahs are so fast.
Yeah?
As an adult, they can be 160 pounds.
Uh-huh.
And they can run anywhere from 50 to 80 miles per hour.
Whoa. Okay, now I'm going back and putting color in on the ear. So this was kind of like a red-orange area, so I'm just going to keep going with that color palette. And then this one, let's do orange, because I want to be able to differentiate between, like, this is the back of the ear. I feel like I need more yellow. It's sometimes nice to revisit that nostalgia. Also, who says that rainbows are only for kids? You know what I mean?
Not me.
Good.
Hello, Skittles.
Okay. Step one, done. Now, before we move on to step two, depending on how wet your painting is, I am going to I'm gonna do the white part of the fur. I'm gonna rinse my brush, so I'm just using water. And as long as it's not super wet, you can just blend out. So I'm gonna follow this color transition on the white part. So I'm going to do the purple chunk. So you can see I'm not picking up any color. I'm just pulling the color from what's already there. But you can see that if your purple area, your dark purple area is very wet, if you touch water to it, all the color will bleed out. If it's kind of dry, then only a little color is going to come out. So you decide when your painting is ready. And if you're just kind of stressed and you're like, I don't know if I can, I don't know about this. Well, take a deep breath, just wait for this to dry completely, and then go back in with a little light value and paint the area in there. Not a big deal, not the end of the world. Okay?
Nice. Wow.
Now we're moving on to step 2. Oh, no we're not. Keenan, I forgot a chunk of the face and you didn't even tell me?
I didn't anticipate you skipping a step.
I didn't skip a step, I just skipped an entire area.
I didn't anticipate that.
You're like, I thought you knew what you were doing?
Didn't know.
I thought you would be good at your job?
I never said that out
Am I supposed to do your job now?
Is this a leopard?
Okay, now we're moving on to step 2, and this is where we're gonna start putting in our dark and medium values. So this is where you're gonna think about the actual shape and form of this face. Where does it go in? Where does it stick out? Where are there shadows? You can look at your reference photos. You can look at other reference photos. I think the original photo that I got this from is on Unsplash, most likely Unsplash or Pixabay. And you know, you can look at that for reference. So like, take a look. I'm gonna go off my reference photo here, and I'm gonna start with mixing an orange. And kind of in this curved area where there are these dots right here, there's a darker value that goes to the eye. Now, not all the way to the eye, it's kind of like this curved part right here. But we're trying to say like, it's like the side of our nose. We have to show that it's curving away from the light. So if the light is looking at us directly, it's hitting the bridge, the top part of our nose, and then as our nose goes away, on the sides, it's a darker value. And that's communicating this is a different plane. This is one plane, this is another plane. So we gotta separate those. Okay. We also need to separate the cheek under the eye. So I'm just doing orange, kind of brush strokes. I'm still using my 12 just because it's faster. But you can use your 6 if that's what you have. That's what I used originally to paint this, but I'm really just enjoying this 12 right now, so I'm just gonna keep going. And then there's like, have you ever pet a dog and you can feel the bump on their top of their head where it kind of goes in a little?
Yes.
So they have that too. So like this, just gonna put that in there. That blend out on this side. Okay, so it's just a hint. Like so. There is a shadow on this side of the nose. So now, even though this feels, you're like, where are we and what are we doing? What's going on? Don't stress, it's okay. At this point, this stage, when you're starting to put in darker values, it feels like disjointed. You feel like you're not sure if what you're doing is actually making a difference and if you're really just making a mess. That's a normal feeling, push through it. Okay, so I'm just, again, look at your reference photo, see where there are values, darker values, medium values, and paint those in. Again, if you even need to feel your own face just to give you a little bit more understanding, like there is, our cheeks are behind our nose, so those are a darker value. Feel around your eye sockets, feel around your neck. Like these are all different parts of form. And wherever there's different planes, whenever you want to separate an area, you just got to change up the values. Okay?
How do you increase the separation of a plane on your own neck?
Oh, Keen, if I knew the answer to that, I would be so rich. Are you kidding? Have I Googled how to strengthen my own jawbone? 100%.
Chew gum every day.
But it's not like this. It's like, I don't know is the answer, and I wish I did. Okay. So now I'm gonna go behind. So like underneath the jaw is another great example of switching up the planes, because right now these are a similar value and we need to push that neck back. And the face, the head itself is casting a shadow on the neck. So right underneath, I'm gonna do fuchsia. And if you lay down a really strong fuchsia, that putting pure fuchsia underneath there is not a different value, don't worry. Mix a little bit of Payne's Gray in with your fuchsia to darken that value, and you'll be good to go. Now also behind the ear a little bit to show like this section is the head, it meets the neck, and that turns into the body. And I'm kind of blending it just a little bit, because while we want there to be a slight change in value so you can tell that there's two different sections going on here, what you don't want is to do it so dark and so different that it actually looks like the head is popping off of the neck. You know what I mean? So the degree and darkness of your value will inform the viewer how distant that plane, those planes are from each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because if you, the
Okay.
popping of the head really sold it for me.
Yeah, so like the most extreme plane change in this painting is from the head to the neck. So that's where our darkest value will be on our, when we're putting in these shadows, okay? So even though I have a darker one going on right here, I don't feel like it actually is enough. So I'm gonna let that dry for a second, and then I'm gonna go in and darken that shadow even further, because I really wanna separate that. That doesn't need it back here, because these are connected, just different parts of the body. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Like there's a slight disconnect, but not like as much from jaw to chest. Okay, let's do the bottom part of the jaw. So I'm just doing a light value here. I'm starting with orange. Add some water, grab some yellow to the mouth. Okay. So can't you see already, like, okay, this is taking some shape, this is taking some form.
Shape kind of looks a little retro, which I'm a big fan of, maybe a little comic booky.
Yeah, graphic. Like a graphic novel?
Yes.
Not like violence. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Okay.
I think we're saying the same thing.
We are saying the same thing, yeah.
Graphic novel-y.
It's like a style.
Styly.
I'm just gonna dry this so I don't have to wait.
Okay.
Because I'm impatient. I guess I can fill that in. I don't know why I left that blank. There we go. I don't know if it's bad to like dry a painting and paint simultaneously, but why not? Why not try something?
It's like eating while walking on the treadmill.
There we go. Okay, I think that's dry enough. So let's put a little Payne's Gray on here. Again, not a ton. And you can actually even use like purple for the shadow underneath the chin. That can work too. I just felt like I lost some color here, so I'm gonna just put it back. go. Okay, that feels better. Now fuchsia, a little Payne's gray, but don't go too crazy. Because essentially when you mix Payne's gray in with fuchsia, it creates purple. So if you just wanted to use blue instead, you could. Just kind of define that. Now there is going to be a spot here which kind of helps us kind of separate out, but after you put that kind of shadow in, I'm going to use water and just kind of blend it. And I'm going to switch to my 6 now. That round 12 was fun. It's time to get a little sharper here though. Okay, see, didn't that push that face out a little bit more?
Totally.
Totally.
Brought it more to life.
And I'm going to do that a little bit here. Just, again, we don't want to go as dark as this value. We want to communicate that they're separate, but not as separate as these two. Okay. Cool. Cool. Okay, now the real trick to this project is trying to see the dots at this point, because
I was gonna say, that is gonna be tricky.
So don't stress about the actual placement of your spots as much, because I mean, I can see some of them, but we're just going for general here. And really, I mean, I'm saying this as if I know and I don't actually know, but I feel pretty confident.
Go for it.
That for the most part, spots aren't carbon copies on every single.
Like fingerprints.
Yeah. I feel like there's always going to be a slight variation, so don't stress. Is that actually true? I don't know.
It has to be.
It's got to be. It sounds like it is.
It would be a lot of work for them to be carbon copy. You know, copy paste.
Just kind of sharpening that a little bit more. Oh, it's so easy to keep going. Okay, now we're going to move on to the eyes and the nose and the mouth before we get into the spots here. Don't mind me, I'm just going to keep going. Okay, now this is where we want to bring in Payne's gray.
Don't mind me, just paint.
Don't mind me just painting without giving you instruction during that time. All right, so I'm going to start with the nose. Now, if you look at the nose, it's the darkest value at the bottom, and then as it gets to the top, it's going to lighten out. So I'm going to use my 6, pick up some Payne's gray, start right at that bottom V. Okay, I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way up, and then I'm going to introduce some water. Okay, now again, rinse, dab, use water, blend. Now, okay, I want to show you something. There's a ton of water on my paper right now and paint. So even if I'm blending out, all of this black is going to move, okay? You see how it's just moving right to wherever I put the water? If that happens to you, don't stress. Just take a damp brush that's mostly dry and just lift up that excess paint and water. Okay, now that feels more manageable to me. Now I can use a damp brush and blend out. And it's bleeding a little bit, but not going so crazy that I lose all my values. And you can even put your brush stroke going down. So then the darkest part, because when you lift up your brush, wherever you stop, there's a little bit of paint residue, right? So that's why you brush down. So then that paint residue stays in the dark area. All right, I feel like my value got a little bit too light at the top. So I feel like the highlight is mostly on the left-hand side. So I'm going to just darken this nose a little bit. starting on the corner. There we go, that's starting to feel better. Okay, we're gonna leave that, come back to it if we need to. Let that dry. Now we're gonna do the mouth. So I'm switching to my round 2, and I'm gonna paint in between, and then just like at this bottom where we see this jaw is black. Okay, and then rinse your brush. So using just water, blend out. And kind of just follow the shape of that mouth along here. Okay. It is at this stage in your painting that you're going to be looking at this going, what the heck is going on? What, Keenan?
I was thinking that's an animal.
I mean, it's an animal, but you might feel frustrated that it doesn't feel as clean as you want it to feel at this point. And so what I'm saying to you is keep going. Don't stop right now. Don't stop right now. You're going to want to, but you got to push through this part, because once we put in the eyes and the spots, you're good. Okay, now I'm going to move to my eyes, still using my 2. I'm going to do just black around the eyeballs. So I'm going to kind of follow my outline here. I can still see it through. If you can't see yours, then go ahead and just look at your reference photo.
See, this is my favorite kind, like style.
What?
Unfinished.
Yeah?
This right here looks so cool to me.
It does look pretty cool.
The,
What? Would you say what the?
it's just that it's neat. It's a swell picture.
Okay, and let's do the iris. Maybe just black. There are 2 dots for glare, 1 big dot for the iris. This part always makes me laugh because it looks like they're like always like, It's just awkward middle phase, keep going. Okay, I'm gonna do the other side.
This is like the teenager phase for your painting.
Yeah.
And you got a baby stage, which is the outline. Then you got the toddler stage, which is putting on the color, and then as you put in the details when things look awkward, that's teenager phase for sure.
Yeah. Now, I learned a great tip from Taylor, who we mentioned about the colored pencils when we were doing the eyeballs. She said you want to make sure that the pupils, did I call them irises before? I can't remember. The pupils line up. That's how you, like, across from each other.
Oh.
That's how you make it so they don't look.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
Tip.
And I was just like, oh, okay, girl. That's a good
okay.
tip.
Okay.
Okay. Didn't know that. And hopefully that will help from making the eyes feel a little bit wonky. That looks good.
That looks great.
Okay, we're gonna let that dry for a second before we go in and do the actual coloring on the eyes, because we want to make sure that that part is totally dry before we try and paint the actual iris is the colored part. Pupil is the black part.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's
Okay.
right.
Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry, I feel actually pretty good about my nose. I might actually feel like my edges got a little bit like jagged, so I'm just gonna sharpen some of those. Smooth it, I guess. But yours might not need it. And I feel like there needs to be a little stronger shadow right there, a little darker value. Okay. Again, you're thinking, what's going on with this animal? It's okay. It's going to be okay. Just trust me. So while I'm waiting for those eyes to dry, I want to make sure that I feel really good about the values and the placement and the color on my cheetah before I put in the spots. Because once you put in the spots, you don't really have a lot of room to play around with what's underneath it. So I'm gonna darken the edge here. And some of it is just putting in like more vibrant color. Sometimes just another yellow wash or an orange wash really adds saturation. And that's fun. I mean, I'm a fan of color, so I like that. Maybe over here. Oh, and I went outside my outline, so that changed the shape of the head, but I'm not mad about it. I'm just gonna keep going. Okay. This I'm gonna darken. I feel like I need to mix more orange. Go. And I'm kind of letting my brush strokes be seen. And by that I mean they're not all blended out smoothly and perfectly, and I'm okay with that. It's a little bit more gestural, it's a little bit more like kind of illustrative. But I like that, you know? Like it doesn't have to be a perfect, smooth transition all the time. There are many different styles and ways to paint something. And I like to explore a bunch of different ones, you know? Because how would you know you like something unless you try it?
That is why I try most foods.
There we go. Is there one type of food that you're like, not gonna try that, or no?
Well, no.
Okay.
If I haven't had it, I'm gonna try it.
Okay.
That's my policy. But there are foods that I've had and that I will never have again, or try my best.
Okay, like what?
Corn.
Corn, really?
Corn, I can't do it. I actually had some the other day. So here's the thing. It's a texture thing rather than a flavor. Because I love the smell and the flavor of buttered corn.
Yeah, it's
Right?
good.
It's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot handle the texture at all.
Do you like peas?
No.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yes.
Making sure.
It's
that it's consistent.
And even if I have a thing too much, that texture starts to my body's like, oh, I know this texture. I can't handle it. So when I have 30 burgers a month, my body's like, you should stop. Because you're going to not like this in 5 years. So I have to take, 3-4 months break and then go back.
Yeah. Again, I'm just kind of going through, looking at values, giving some areas some extra love. I have no idea how much me going outside of this outline is going to change the overall face. Just giving you a heads up. Okay.
It's not bad.
Okay. Well, thanks, Keenan. It's not bad so far. It'll be fine.
It'll be great.
Okay, now one last thing I'm going to do is, when I'm painting large areas and then I'm starting to go into details, I'll sometimes just leave the area around the detail area white just to give myself a buffer in case I mess up. So I'm gonna go in and I left the eyelids white underneath, which I want them to be a lighter value, but I don't want them to be white. So I'm just gonna go in and blend those out just a little bit. You can use yellow if you want some color. Okay. I'm gonna do one more dark value here. darker value here along the jawbone. Okay, you guys trust me. Once we put in the irises, it's gonna be okay. Are we dry enough? I think we're dry enough to attempt it. So when you do the eyes, you wanna go from super dark green to light green. So that bottom swish of this eye is like a yellow green, super, super vibrant. So I'm gonna put that in first. I have a little bit, I'm using my 2. Grab some yellow. It's like a lime green, just like bright, bright color, okay? And I'm just gonna run that across the bottom of my iris on both sides. Okay? Give that a second. Make sure it's nice and dry, because we don't want to lose that little highlight. I mean, it really adds so much. Then we're gonna mix a slightly darker green. You can put more blue in it. You can grab a little bit of Payne's Gray. We just want it to be different. We're gonna drop in that green. We're staying close to the pupil. Okay, like that. And then that very top part of that eye is gonna be super dark green. So I'm grabbing Payne's Gray for this. I'm grabbing blue, grabbing some yellow, getting a nice dark green. Remember to leave a couple spots white for the glare. If you forget, it's not the end of the world, but it really does add something. I think that glare is a little bit too big, so I'm gonna just make it a little bit smaller. Now, if you accidentally paint over the glare, using something like bleed proof white to go in and put that in there would be preferred. Okay, now we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. I already put in my highlight. I'm gonna grab my medium green. Okay, then my super dark green for the top. Remember to leave the glare. And I always like to be a little bit extra with my glares to start off, and then I like look back and be like, okay, that's too much glare, so let's darken that. Okay, that feels better. I think it got a little bit dark on this corner, so I'm gonna lift.
Cool.
Okay, I'm just gonna let that be for a second and come back to it, because again, watercolor dries differently than when we put it down. So I like to put something down, walk away from it, and then come back to see if I need to adjust anything. Okay? Now is when we're gonna put in our spots. Let's get to it. I'm just gonna use my 6, got my Payne's Gray. And just try and follow either the reference photo, or if you can still see through your outline here. But again, don't get so caught up in not seeing exactly what's going on that you freeze up, because all of these spots I think are going to be slightly different from feline to feline. Yeah, that's good.
Feline to feline.
And they actually even have a little bit of a curve right here, like a long. Now the dots these spots are a little bit smaller, closer on the face, and then they get bigger as they go out. And at this point, I really can't see my spot. So I'm really just going for it. Don't overthink it. Don't stress too much. Oh, you can see some of my paint is still wet. So try and make sure, like this actually isn't the end of the world, because when there are spots on an animal where that spot meets the regular fur color, there's always a lighter value where those two areas meet. So if your spots bleed out a little bit and have that soft fuzzy edge, not a bad thing. I didn't purposely do that. That worked out in my favor, and I'm not mad about it. Happy accident. Some here that go this way. Okay. They kind of are small over here by the eyes. This poor head that I made huge on accident.
It was a clumsy day for him.
Yeah.
You know, bump on the head.
Bump on the head. He's fine.
He's strong.
Just laughing at that little burp. Okay, and then don't forget the ears, rest of the body. We're just going to keep going. Eyeballing the spots.
Can you see your outlines?
Not really. I see it when I'm putting down one that's not on it. And then I'm like, oh, there's one.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, ooh, there it is. Now you'll see that at this point I'm starting to do dashes a little bit because this hair is longer on the body than on the face.
Okay.
So then you're gonna get some longer strands. You're gonna get some more not perfectly round spots because they're still on fur. Pay attention to the placement since we don't have an outline. Since we're painting blind here.
You've gone rogue.
We've gone rogue. So just be aware of, are they all too much the same size? Do you have variation? That kind of thing. Okay. And also, like where the whiskers come out, there's actually some black spots there. So when they gather a lot, they kind of overlap, and then as they get closer to the mouth, you actually can see them individually. Kind of runs into the bottom of that jaw. Like so. Okay. And I think what I'm going to do for this edge of that cheetah, this part that's poking out, is I'm just going to round this out a little bit. I wonder what I could do about that.
Give it a headband.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm just gonna do like a big floral right there or something.
Yes.
I'm gonna come back to it and I'm gonna go back to the eyes. So the top part of my eyes, now I think things are mostly dry. I'm gonna do another layer on the top part here because I want that to be pretty heavily shadowed. I feel like that extreme like dark to light is really what makes it feel a little bit more realistic.
That's awesome.
So that feels better. That head, I'm just laughing at it. Okay, here.
Listen, he was born this way.
That's just how it was made.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if rounding that out was the right choice. Keenan, do you mind getting me a clean glass of water? I'm gonna see what it looks like if we try and lift a little bit.
Yep.
Let's problem solve together.
Okay.
And while we're waiting for that, I'm just gonna do, like the nose is the one area where I feel like I can go back in and play a little bit because it doesn't have spots right there. So I'm just kind of going back in and, there we go. Okay. All right, let's test this. So grab a clean paper towel, clean water, clean brush, and let's see if we can lift off the edge a little bit. Just thin it out. So I'm just putting water, only water on that edge. Now, I have black here, so definitely I won't be able to lift that off. So I'm kind of blotting up and rubbing towards the thing. Okay, that's starting to lift a little bit. Let's see what happens if we do it on the black. Let's just see. You know what? Let's.
Yeah.
Now you want to be careful at this point because if you scrub and rub too much on your paper, no matter what paper, it will start to like degrade. Like the actual fibers of the paper will start to rub off. So just be careful.
We don't like that.
Okay, okay, that feels better.
Yeah, it looks great.
I'm gonna give it a second and then I'm gonna go back in and sharpen the edge a little bit. And redefine that edge, but you want to make sure it's dry before you do that.
Okay.
And that highlight shouldn't be there, so I'm going to blend that out. The nice thing about watercolor, if there's ever a space where it's just like, that's too bright, like, I don't know what that is, but it's just like looking at me, like I'm looking at this, and even though I want this to be a lighter value, I feel like it's too light. So whenever I get to this space where I'm like, that's just too much, all you got to do is blend it out. Just blend. Even if you get some black, let it get a little bit messy. You can even drop some color in there if you want. But sometimes just like messing it up is just what it needs to feel more realistic. And again, some of these dots, I'm gonna go in with my 2 on some of these like spots and do little fur textures, like little thin lines coming out around it. Because now we want to start acknowledging that this is hair, which means that there's little strands coming in and out. Just give it a little extra detail. And you can do the same thing with the colors themselves. So like in the purple area, if you wanted to do some little swoop, swoop, swoops to make it feel like actual hair and fur, go for it. Swish, swish, swish. Maybe even coming off the back here. Swish, 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 swish. We're not going crazy, we're not doing the whole thing, but just enough, just a little bit. give our viewers some information of the texture of our animal. But don't mix up your colors. I almost just painted purple in the green. Ooh. Okay. Man, I really like how my eyes turned out. I think they're definitely Lisa Frank.
I love when you put the eyes in. Initially, they were crazy good, but then now, once you decided to put the darker value, forget about it.
Forget about it. And I'm just doing more detail, like smaller areas. My underpainting is more dry now, so that I'm not getting as many bleeds, which is good. Okay. Does this nose need a little extra layer right on the edge? Okay. I don't know, I feel like this actually needs to be darker right here. This orange. And this part too. Okay. All right. This is dark enough or dry enough that I'm going to go in and kind of just there we go.
Wow.
It's not that bad, actually.
No. You've hidden it.
We've hidden it. And if you have like, if you want to put a background in, like that's also another option where maybe you're like, okay, well, let's do a background. Like, I don't feel like being good at painting or really anything that you make is not about not making mistakes. It's about figuring out how to pivot or adjust or hide your mistakes. That's all it is.
I agree with that.
Thanks, Keaton.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What if you were like, no,
I disagree.
wrong?
I would have to come up, because I agree with it, I can't even come up with an alternative option.
Okay. This feels pretty good.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, now the very last step is putting in our whiskers. Now, if you have a liner brush, liner 2 is what I prefer. That makes your life so much easier. But we have the round 2, which is good as well. So I'm gonna pick up Payne's Gray. I'm gonna smush my brush so it has a nice thin line. And I'm just gonna go for it and try and make as thin of a line as possible coming out of these area. Boop, boop, boop. And there's a lot. Boop, 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 boop. And have them go into the rainbow part. Like this is coming out of the face. So we want to make sure it's overlapping all of those areas. Let me dry this really quick before, because they're kind of bleeding. Ba-bam. All right. And you want to make sure that they don't just go straight out, some curve up, some curve down. You know what I mean? Like some actually go like super wonky. So just like take a look, take a breath, and go for it. Okay, now the other ones are going to go out, but not as long because the face is kind of turning away from us a little bit. Curve down, curve up. I think we're good.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's always areas that you can go back in and slightly adjust, but we made it.
That was a good looking penguin.
And you know what? I'm happy that we got to see, you guys got to see like adjusting what it looks like when you make an area too big, how that can affect the overall form, and how you can go back in and maybe like play with it, adjust it, and try and work with your mistakes, because the truth is we all make them all the time. It doesn't matter how long you've been painting or how good you are at something, you're still going to mess up once in a while. That feels better. Okay, so if you are on Facebook, join our watercolor group. Great community, very large but very encouraging. That's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. We also have a Finstagram. Tag us in it at Let's Go Make Art or hashtag Let's Make Art. Can't wait to see what you come up with this project. I'm so sorry I misnamed it, but hopefully you still enjoy it, and have a great day. Bye.
Did you say Finstagram?
Yeah.